Maya Chen sat in the back corner of the Galactic Academy's mess hall, picking at her nutrition paste while alien students laughed and chatted around her. The 17-year-old human girl had perfected the art of being invisible over her 3 years at the prestigious Interstellar School. While her classmates from dozens of different species formed friendships and study groups, Maya kept to herself with her books and her thoughts. The Academy housed the brightest young minds from across the galaxy, preparing them for careers in diplomacy, science, and galactic defense. Humans were a relatively new addition to the galactic community, having only made first contact 15 years ago. Most species still viewed them as primitive newcomers who had barely mastered faster-than-light travel. Maya's presence at the Academy was somewhat of an accident. Her test scores in mathematics and theoretical physics had been exceptional, but her social scores were nearly non-existent. The admissions board had debated for months before finally accepting her, mostly due to pressure from the Human Colonial Authority to have more representation. "Look at the little human. All alone again," sneered Vextar, a tall reptilian saurian with emerald scales and predatory yellow eyes. His 3 companions, including a floating gas bag helium and 2 insectoid Chitauri, laughed at his comment. Maybe she's planning another one of her brilliant tactical theories that everyone ignores. Maya didn't look up from her food. She had learned long ago that responding only made things worse. The other students saw her as weak, boring, and inferior. Her professors tolerated her academic excellence, but found her lack of social engagement disappointing. Even the human students at the Academy avoided her, preferring to associate with more charismatic aliens who could boost their social standing. What none of them knew was that Maya spent her free time studying something far more important than social dynamics. While her classmates played holographic games and attended parties, Maya analyzed combat footage from across the galaxy. She studied every major battle from the past century, dissecting tactics, strategies, and the fatal mistakes that led to defeat. Her dormitory room was filled with tactical manuals, battle simulations, and historical records of conflicts between various species. Maya had an unusual gift for seeing patterns that others missed, for understanding how seemingly random events connected to create victory or catastrophe. But whenever she tried to share her insights in strategy class, Professor Krillax would dismiss her ideas as overly simplistic human thinking. The Zephyrian professor was a tall, crystalline being whose transparent body pulsed with different colored lights depending on his mood. Currently, those lights were a condescending blue as he addressed the class about defensive formations. The key to successful galactic warfare, he explained, is understanding that each species brings unique advantages to battle. The Saurians have superior reflexes, the Heliums can navigate 3-dimensional space naturally, and the Chitauri work together like a hive mind. A student raised a tentacle. "What about humans, Professor?" Krillax's lights shifted to an amused yellow. "Humans are adaptable. They make adequate support personnel when properly supervised by more experienced species." Maya bit her tongue to keep from responding. She had read about human military history, about battles where outnumbered human forces had defeated technologically superior enemies through tactics that other species considered impossible or insane. But pointing this out would only earn her more ridicule. After class, Maya walked through the Academy's corridors toward the simulation labs. The hallways were magnificent, with transparent walls offering views of the gas giant Kepler 442b that the Academy orbited. Ships of various designs could be seen coming and going, representing the dozens of species that comprise the Galactic Federation. The simulation lab was usually empty at this hour, which was exactly why Maya preferred it. She activated her personal training program and began running tactical scenarios. The holographic display showed a typical Federation fleet formation facing an unknown enemy force. Maya studied the enemy's movement patterns, looking for weaknesses that the computer's standard responses missed. "Interesting approach," said a voice behind her. Maya spun around to see Captain Sarah Rodriguez, one of the few human instructors at the Academy. The middle-aged woman had been a starship captain before accepting a teaching position, and she was one of the only faculty members who didn't treat Maya like an oddity. "Captain Rodriguez," Maya said, quickly shutting down the simulation. "I was just practicing." "Don't stop on my account," Rodriguez said, settling into a chair. "I was curious about your tactical modifications to the standard scenarios. You've been changing the parameters, haven't you?" Maya nodded reluctantly. "The standard responses are too predictable. Any real enemy would adapt to them within minutes." "Show me," Rodriguez said. Maya hesitated, then reactivated the simulation. She explained how she had modified the enemy AI to learn and adapt, making it more unpredictable and dangerous. As the battle played out, Maya's unconventional strategies began to show their effectiveness. Instead of the standard linear formations, she used scattered groups that appeared chaotic but were actually precisely coordinated. "Where did you learn this?" Rodriguez asked, genuine interest in her voice. "Books, historical records. I study battles from before we joined the Federation, when humans fought each other," Maya explained. "We had to be creative because we didn't have technological advantages." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Most of our alien colleagues don't study human military history. They assume it's irrelevant because it was primitive warfare. But the principles are the same," Maya said, growing excited despite herself. "Misdirection, psychological warfare, using the enemy's expectations against them. These things work regardless of technology level." For the next hour, Maya demonstrated various scenarios she had created. Rodriguez watched with growing amazement as the quiet girl revealed a tactical mind that was truly exceptional. Maya's approaches were unconventional by galactic standards, but they were devastatingly effective. "Maya," Rodriguez said finally, "have you ever considered that maybe being overlooked isn't entirely a disadvantage?" Maya looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one nobody notices," Rodriguez said with a slight smile. "Keep studying, keep practicing, and Maya, don't let anyone convince you that human tactics are primitive. Different doesn't mean inferior." As Maya walked back to her dormitory that night, she felt a small spark of hope. Maybe Captain Rodriguez was right. Maybe being invisible had its advantages. She had been studying galactic warfare from the outside, seeing things that insiders missed. Tomorrow would bring another day of being ignored and overlooked. But for the first time in years, Maya Chen didn't mind. She was beginning to understand that the quiet girl in the corner might have more power than anyone realized. The emergency alarm jolted Maya awake at 0300 hours. Red lights flashed through her dormitory window as the Academy's defense systems activated. Students poured into the hallways in various states of dress and panic, speaking in dozens of different languages and communication methods. "What's happening?" squeaked Zilana, Maya's helium roommate, her gas-filled body pulsating with nervous purple clouds. Maya was already pulling on her uniform. "Proximity alert. Something big just dropped out of hyperspace near the Academy." The intercom crackled to life with Director Valthon's authoritative voice. The Centaurian's forearms gestured dramatically even though no one could see him. "All students report to emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill. An unidentified fleet has appeared in our system and is not responding to communication attempts." Maya followed the crowd toward the Academy's command center, a massive chamber filled with holographic displays showing local space. What she saw made her blood run cold. 12 massive warships hung in space, their design unlike anything in Federation databases. They were angular, predatory-looking vessels covered in what appeared to be organic armor. "The ships are of unknown origin," announced Professor Krillax, his crystalline body flashing anxious red. "They appeared without warning and have ignored all attempts at communication. Federation patrol ships are en route, but they're 6 hours away." Director Valthon stepped forward, his blue skin pale with worry. "Academy defense protocols are now in effect. All students will remain in the command center while faculty coordinate with approaching Federation forces." Maya studied the tactical display with growing unease. The unknown ships had positioned themselves in a perfect intercept formation. Any Federation vessels approaching would have to run a gauntlet of concentrated firepower. It was a classic ambush setup, but most of her classmates seemed oblivious to the strategic implications. "They're probably just lost explorers," suggested Takmor, a confident Chitauri student whose insectoid features clicked nervously. "Once our ships arrive, they'll either communicate or leave." Maya shook her head. "Look at their formation. Those aren't exploration ships. They're positioned for maximum tactical advantage against approaching forces." Several students turned to stare at her, surprised to hear the quiet human speak up. Vextar, the Saurian who frequently mocked her, let out a derisive hiss. "The little human thinks she understands military tactics better than the Academy faculty." "Actually," said Captain Rodriguez, who had just entered the command center, "Maya might be onto something." She studied the display with professional eyes. "Those formations are aggressive, not defensive." Before anyone could respond, the lead alien ship transmitted a message. The voice that filled the command center was cold and mechanical, speaking in heavily accented galactic standard. Federation Academy, you will surrender immediately. Resistance will result in the destruction of your station and all aboard. The chamber erupted in panicked chatter. Many students had never faced a real threat before, having grown up in the peaceful Federation where conflicts were rare and usually resolved through diplomacy. Director Valthon's forearms trembled slightly as he responded. Unknown vessels. This is an educational facility housing students from across the galaxy. We are not a military target. Please state your intentions. Your intentions are irrelevant, came the reply. You have 30 minutes to power down all defensive systems and prepare for boarding. Any attempt to flee or resist will be met with destruction. Maya watched the tactical display with intense focus, while chaos erupted around her. The alien ships were moving into tighter formation, clearly preparing for either boarding operations or a direct assault. Federation protocols called for immediate evacuation in such situations, but the Academy's transport ships were nowhere near fast enough to escape before the aliens closed their trap. We need to evacuate immediately, declared Professor Krillax, his lights flashing orange with panic. Contact all available civilian transports in the system. There aren't any, Captain Rodriguez replied grimly. The nearest civilian ships are in the inner system, hours away. Our own transports can't outrun those warships if they decide to pursue. Maya stepped forward hesitantly. Captain Rodriguez, what about the Academy's defensive systems? Could we hold them off until Federation forces arrive? Professor Krillax's light shifted to dismissive yellow. Child, this is a school, not a military fortress. Our defenses are minimal, designed to deter pirates, not handle a full fleet assault. But sometimes minimal defenses can be more effective than they appear, Maya said quietly. If used correctly. Director Valthon's large eyes focused on her. Explain. Maya moved to the tactical display, her hands shaking slightly as she manipulated the controls. The Academy has 6 defensive platforms positioned around the station. Standard doctrine would be to use them as stationary gun emplacements, but that makes them easy targets. She highlighted the platforms on the display. But what if we don't use them defensively? What if we use them as mobile weapons? The platforms aren't designed for mobility, Professor Krillax protested. They have minimal maneuvering thrusters. Minimal doesn't mean useless, Maya replied, gaining confidence. Look at the enemy formation. They're positioned to intercept ships trying to escape, but they're not expecting an attack from the Academy itself. Captain Rodriguez studied Maya's analysis with growing interest. You're suggesting we detach the defensive platforms and use them as attack vessels? Not attack vessels exactly, Maya said. Distractions. If we launch them on unpredictable trajectories, the enemy will have to respond. That creates opportunities for our real defensive systems to target their ships while they're focused on the platforms. It's insane, muttered Takmor. Those platforms barely have life support systems. That's what makes it unexpected, Maya said. Nobody expects educational defensive platforms to break formation and attack. It violates every standard tactical doctrine. Director Valthon's expression was unreadable. Even if this worked, who would pilot these platforms? They require manual control for complex maneuvering. The command center fell silent. Everyone understood the implication. Whoever piloted the platforms would be flying essentially unarmored weapons with minimal life support, directly at enemy warships. It was a suicide mission disguised as a tactical maneuver. I'll do it, Maya said quietly. Absolutely not, Captain Rodriguez said immediately. You're a student, not a pilot. I've logged more simulation hours than anyone else at the Academy, Maya replied. And this plan requires someone who understands unconventional tactics. Vextar laughed harshly. The scared little human wants to play hero? You'll be vaporized the moment you leave the Academy's shields. Maya looked directly at him. Maybe. But right now it's the only plan that might save everyone on this station. Director Valthon studied the tactical display for long moments. The alien ships were moving closer, and their 30-minute deadline was rapidly approaching. Federation forces were still hours away, and conventional defenses would last minutes against a concentrated assault. The plan has merit, he said finally, but I cannot ask a student to take such a risk. You're not asking, Maya said firmly. I'm volunteering. Captain Rodriguez placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. Maya, there has to be another way. Maya shook her head. Sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the only one who can see what needs to be done. As the Academy's faculty debated the desperate plan, Maya stared at the enemy ships on the tactical display. For 3 years she had been invisible, ignored, overlooked by everyone around her. But invisibility, she was beginning to realize could be the ultimate weapon. The quiet girl everyone had dismissed was about to show them what humans were really capable of. Maya's hands moved across the defensive platform's control systems with practiced precision. The cramped cockpit smelled of recycled air and ozone from overworked electronics. Through the small viewport, she could see the Academy growing smaller as she piloted the modified platform away from its docking station. Platform 1 operational, she reported through the comm system. Beginning evasive maneuver sequence. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the speaker. Maya, remember, this is a distraction mission only. Don't engage the enemy ships directly. Your job is to make them react unpredictably. Understood, Maya replied, though her eyes were already analyzing the enemy formation for weaknesses. The alien ships maintained their rigid intercept pattern, clearly expecting either surrender or a conventional defense. They had no idea that a single human student was about to turn their tactical advantage into a liability. Maya had spent the past 20 minutes modifying the platform's programming while the Academy's engineers worked frantically to install additional maneuvering thrusters. The platform wasn't designed for complex combat maneuvers, but Maya had studied enough historical battles to know that surprise often mattered more than equipment. Enemy ships are holding position, reported Professor Krillex from the Academy's command center. They appear to be waiting for our response to their ultimatum. Maya checked her chronometer. 15 minutes remaining until the alien deadline. Federation forces were still over 5 hours away. Everything depended on her ability to disrupt the enemy formation long enough for the Academy's real defensive systems to inflict serious damage. Platform 1, this is Captain Rodriguez. You're cleared to begin your approach. Remember, erratic patterns only. Don't let them predict your movements. Maya took a deep breath and activated the platform's modified thruster array. Instead of flying directly toward the enemy ships, she programmed a seemingly random flight path that would take her through the asteroid field between the Academy and the alien fleet. The first enemy ship to notice her approach was the largest vessel, positioned at the center of their formation. Maya watched its weapon systems track her movement, but the alien gunners seemed confused by her erratic trajectory. She was flying like someone who had lost control of her vessel, tumbling and spinning through space in a pattern that looked accidental, but was actually carefully calculated. "What is that vessel doing?" came a transmitted voice from the alien fleet. "It appears to be malfunctioning," Maya smiled grimly. Let them think she was out of control. The more they underestimated her, the better her plan would work. She guided the platform through a series of apparent emergency maneuvers, using the asteroid field as cover, while gradually working her way closer to the enemy formation. The alien ships adjusted their positions slightly to track her movement, but they remained confident in their tactical superiority. "Platform 1, you're doing great," Captain Rodriguez's voice said. "The enemy formation is starting to shift. Keep them guessing." Maya's real objective wasn't the alien ships themselves, but the space between them. She had noticed something in their formation that the Academy's faculty had missed. The enemy vessels were positioned to create overlapping fields of fire, but they were also blocking each other's scanning sensors. If she could maneuver correctly, she could create blind spots in their detection grid. The largest alien ship began broadcasting. "Academy Station, your vessel appears to be in distress. Surrender immediately and we will allow rescue operations." Maya almost laughed. They actually thought she was a panicked civilian trying to escape. She continued her distressed flight pattern while carefully positioning herself relative to the enemy ship's scanning arrays. "Now," she whispered, and activated a special program she had hidden in the platform's computer system. The platform suddenly released a cloud of metallic chaff and electronic countermeasures, creating a massive sensor shadow that stretched across half the enemy formation. For 30 seconds, 6 of the 12 alien ships would be effectively blind to anything happening in the Academy's direction. "What the hell?" came a transmission from the alien fleet as their sensors registered the interference. That was Maya's signal to begin Phase 2 of her plan. She activated the platform's emergency beacon, making it appear that her vessel was about to explode. The alien ships, thinking they were about to lose their only prisoner, moved to intercept her. The formation that had been so perfectly positioned for defense suddenly became scattered and vulnerable, as ships broke formation to capture what they thought was a helpless civilian craft. "Now," Captain Rodriguez's voice rang out. "All defensive systems target the disrupted ships." The Academy's hidden weapons, concealed within the station's superstructure, suddenly came online. Particle beams and missile launchers that had been disguised as communication arrays and sensor dishes, opened fire on the scattered alien vessels. 3 enemy ships took direct hits before they realized what was happening. The aliens had been so focused on Maya's apparently disabled platform that they missed the Academy's real defensive capabilities entirely. Impossible, transmitted the alien commander. This is an educational facility. Maya grinned as she piloted her platform through another series of evasive maneuvers. Never assume your enemy is what they appear to be, she said, quoting one of her favorite tactical principles. The alien fleet was now in chaos. Their perfect formation had dissolved as ships tried to respond to multiple threats simultaneously. Some were pursuing Maya's platform, others were returning fire on the Academy, and still others were trying to re-establish their original intercept pattern. Platform 1, brilliant work, Captain Rodriguez transmitted. Can you keep them confused for another 10 minutes? Maya studied the tactical situation developing around her. The alien ships were adapting faster than she had hoped. Their formation was scattered, but their commanders were beginning to understand that they had been deceived. I can do better than that, Maya replied. I'm going to give them something they'll never expect. Instead of continuing her evasive pattern, Maya suddenly reversed course and flew directly toward the largest enemy ship. Her platform's weapons were minimal compared to a warship, but she wasn't planning to engage in a conventional firefight. Maya, what are you doing? Captain Rodriguez's voice was sharp with concern. That ship will destroy you. Not if they think I'm surrendering, Maya replied, broadcasting on all frequencies. Please don't shoot. I surrender. I'm just a student. The alien ship held its fire, probably confused by this latest development. Maya continued her approach, flying the platform like a terrified amateur who had finally given up trying to escape. Maintain course, transmitted the alien commander. Prepare for docking, Maya smiled. They still didn't understand who they were dealing with. As she approached the alien ship's docking bay, Maya activated the final part of her plan. Hidden within the platform's modified systems was a small but powerful electromagnetic pulse generator. It wouldn't destroy the alien ship, but it would disable their systems long enough for the Academy's weapons to target them effectively. Close enough, Maya whispered, and triggered the EMP. The massive alien ship went dark as its systems overloaded. Emergency lights flickered on throughout the vessel as its crew scrambled to restore power to critical systems. Maya used the confusion to escape from the disabled ship's immediate vicinity. Her platform shielded systems unaffected by the electromagnetic pulse she had generated. Direct hit on the flagship, reported Professor Krillax, his crystalline body now flashing excited green. Their command ship is dead in space. The remaining alien vessels, seeing their flagship disabled by what they had thought was a helpless student, finally began to understand that they were not facing a typical Federation target. Maya Chen, the quiet girl everyone had overlooked, had just turned a hopeless defensive situation into a tactical victory. But the battle was far from over, and the enemy was no longer underestimating their opponents. The alien fleet's response was swift and brutal. With their flagship disabled and their formation shattered, the remaining 11 ships abandoned all pretense of capture and switched to full assault mode. Energy beams lashed out across space as the Academy's shields flared under concentrated fire. Maya watched the tactical display from her platform's cramped cockpit as explosions bloomed across the Academy's outer hull. Her successful attack had bought them precious time, but it had also revealed the Academy's true defensive capabilities. The aliens would no longer underestimate their target. All defensive platforms online. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm. Maya, we're launching platforms 2 through 6 with automated defense patterns. Can you coordinate with them? Maya studied the new tactical situation. 5 additional platforms had detached from the Academy, but these were running standard defensive programs. They would provide additional firepower, but their predictable movement patterns made them easy targets for experienced gunners. Negative on standard coordination, Maya replied. I have a better idea. Give me manual override access to all platform weapon systems. Maya, that's beyond your clearance level, Director Valthon's voice interrupted. You're not authorized to control Academy defensive assets. With respect, Director, I just disabled their flagship with unauthorized modifications to Academy equipment, Maya said while dodging a particle beam that turned an asteroid into glowing debris. Maybe now isn't the time to worry about clearance levels. Through her viewport, Maya could see the other defensive platforms engaging the enemy ships in conventional attack patterns. They were brave but predictable. exactly what the alien gunners expected from Federation military doctrine. 2 platforms were already taking heavy fire, their shields failing under concentrated assault. Director, Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through the argument. Maya's unconventional approach is the only thing keeping us alive right now. Give her the access codes. There was a pause filled only by the sound of weapons fire and the Academy's strained shields. Finally, Director Valthon's reluctant voice provided the override codes Maya needed. All platforms, this is Platform 1. Maya transmitted to the other defensive units. Ignore your programmed attack patterns and follow my lead. We're going to show these aliens something they've never seen before. Maya began implementing a strategy she had studied in human naval warfare from centuries past. Instead of fighting as individual units, she coordinated all 6 platforms to move like a pack of wolves, using hit-and-run tactics that were completely foreign to galactic military doctrine. Platform 3, break left and target their engine clusters. Platform 5, provide covering fire. Platforms 2 and 4, prepare for synchronized attack, run on my mark. The human approach to combat was fundamentally different from what the aliens expected. Where galactic doctrine emphasized overwhelming firepower and rigid formations, Maya employed misdirection, psychological warfare, and coordinated chaos. The alien ships struggled to adapt to facing enemies that refused to fight according to established patterns. Their formation, designed to counter conventional Federation tactics, became a liability when faced with opponents who attacked from unexpected angles and retreated before counterattacks could be coordinated. What kind of military training do these Federation forces have? Transmitted one of the alien commanders, frustration evident in his voice. Maya smiled grimly as she led Platform 2 in a diving attack that forced 3 enemy ships to break formation to avoid collision. The kind that comes from being underestimated for 3 years, she muttered. The battle was beginning to turn in the Academy's favor, but Maya knew it wouldn't last. The aliens were learning, adapting their tactics to counter her unconventional approach. She needed something that would end the fight before they could completely adjust. Captain Rodriguez, Maya transmitted, I need you to do something that's going to sound insane. At this point, Maya, insane might be our best option. What do you need? Maya outlined her plan while continuing to coordinate the platform attacks. It was dangerous, unprecedented, and violated every regulation in the Federation military handbook. It was also the only way to ensure the Academy's survival. Maya, that's not just insane, it's impossible, Rodriguez replied. The Academy's main reactor isn't designed for that kind of overload. But it's theoretically possible, Maya insisted. I've run the calculations. We have maybe a 5-minute window before the aliens adapt completely to our tactics. Professor Krillax's voice joined the conversation, his crystalline body undoubtedly flashing alarmed red. What you're suggesting could destroy the entire Academy. The reactor containment isn't designed for that kind of stress. Neither were these defensive platforms designed for combat maneuvering, Maya replied. But we made it work. Sometimes you have to push systems beyond their designed limits. Director Valthon's voice was grave. Maya, explain exactly what you're proposing, Maya. Transmitted her calculations to the Academy's command center while simultaneously directing Platform 4 in an attack. Run that disabled another alien ship's weapons array. The Academy's main reactor can be overloaded to create a massive electromagnetic pulse. It won't destroy the alien ships, but it will disable all their electronic systems simultaneously. And the Academy? Rodriguez asked quietly. We'll lose main power for approximately 6 hours, Maya admitted. Life support will switch to emergency backup, and we'll be defenseless if any ships survive the pulse. If any ships survive? Director Valthon's voice was sharp. Maya's response was interrupted by a proximity alarm. 3 alien ships had broken through the platform screen and were approaching the Academy's main structure. Their weapons began systematically targeting the station's power grid and life support systems. They're trying to disable us without destroying us, Captain Rodriguez observed. They still want to capture the Academy intact, which gives us an advantage, Maya said. They're holding back their most destructive weapons, but that won't last long if they think we're too dangerous to capture. An explosion shook the Academy as one of the alien ships scored a direct hit on the station's primary shield generator. Emergency lighting activated throughout the command center as power fluctuated. Decision time? Maya called out while leading the remaining platforms in a desperate attack to drive the alien ships away from the Academy. We can try to hold out until Federation forces arrive, but our defenses are failing. Or we can take a calculated risk that ends this fight now. Through her viewport, Maya watched Platform 5 explode under concentrated fire from two alien ships. The brave automated systems had followed her unconventional tactics perfectly, but they lacked the creativity to adapt when the enemy began countering her strategies. Maya, Director Valthon's voice was heavy with the weight of command. "If you're wrong about the reactor calculations, then we all die," Maya said simply. "But if we do nothing, we die anyway. At least this way we have a chance." The Academy shuddered under another barrage. Through the tactical display, Maya could see that their shields were down to 30% and falling rapidly. The aliens had finally adapted to her tactics and were pressing their numerical advantage. "Captain Rodriguez," Maya said, "I'm transmitting the reactor overload sequence to your station. It requires manual authorization from both you and Director Valthon. Maya, what about you? The platforms won't survive an electromagnetic pulse at this range." Maya looked out at the stars through her viewport, thinking about 3 years of being invisible, overlooked, and dismissed. Maybe it's time for the quiet girl to make some noise. The Academy's fate now rested on a desperate gamble proposed by the student everyone had ignored. But as Maya prepared for the most dangerous part of her plan, she realized that being overlooked had taught her something valuable. Sometimes the most effective attack comes from the direction no one is watching. Maya's fingers flew across the platform's controls as she uploaded a final program to the Academy's defense network. Around her, space lit up with weapons fire as the remaining alien ships pressed their assault on the station. The Academy's shields flickered and sparked. Down to 15% and falling fast. "Platform 1. You need to get clear of the pulse radius," Captain Rodriguez's voice urged through the comm system. "Maya, that's an order." "Can't do that, Captain," Maya replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Someone needs to coordinate the final attack sequence, and the Academy's command center won't have the tactical view needed once the pulse hits." Through her viewport, Maya watched the last automated defensive platform explode under concentrated fire. Platform 6 had fought bravely, following her unconventional tactics until the end. But now she was alone against 11 enemy warships. "Maya, please," came Director Valthon's voice, uncharacteristically emotional. "We can't ask you to sacrifice yourself for a plan that might not work." "You're not asking," Maya said, echoing her earlier words. "I'm choosing." She activated the platform's emergency recorder, the device that would preserve the tactical data from this battle for future analysis. If her plan failed, maybe someone else could learn from her mistakes. If it succeeded, the recording would show the galaxy what human tactical thinking could accomplish. "This is Maya Chen, student at the Galactic Academy, recording final tactical analysis," she said into the device while simultaneously dodging weapons fire from two approaching alien ships. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability over technological superiority. Today we tested that principle against superior forces using unconventional tactics. An energy beam scorched past her platform, close enough to overload several secondary systems. Maya compensated quickly, using her damaged vessel's apparent distress to lure the alien ships into a false sense of security. The enemy expects logical, predictable responses based on galactic military standards, she continued recording. Humans excel at being illogical when logic leads to defeat. "Maya," Captain Rodriguez interrupted. "Reactor overload sequence is ready. You have 30 seconds to reach minimum safe distance." Maya studied the tactical display one final time. The alien ships had moved into perfect position for her plan, drawn by what they thought was a crippled platform piloted by a desperate student. They had no idea they were walking into a trap that would use their own tactical superiority against them. "Negative, Captain. Initiate overload sequence on my mark." Maya guided her platform directly toward the largest cluster of enemy ships. To the aliens, it would look like a suicide run by a panicked human. In reality, it was the final piece of a strategy that had taken shape over 3 years of being overlooked and underestimated. "Unknown human vessel. Surrender immediately or be destroyed," transmitted the lead alien ship. "I surrender," Maya replied, broadcasting on all frequencies while continuing her approach. "Please don't shoot. I'm just a student." The alien ships held their fire, probably planning to capture her platform for interrogation. It was exactly what Maya had hoped for. She needed them close together when the electromagnetic pulse hit. "Maya, what are you doing?" Zilana's voice came through the comm system. Her helium roommate had somehow accessed the communication channel from the Academy. "They're going to capture you." "No, they're not," Maya said softly. Through her viewport, she could see the alien ships moving into optimal formation around her platform, Tell everyone I wasn't always the quiet girl. Sometimes I was just waiting for the right moment to speak up. Platform 1, you're at 30 seconds to pulse activation, Captain Rodriguez announced. Please confirm you're clear of the danger zone. Maya looked at the alien ships surrounding her platform. 12 massive warships, their crews confident in their technological superiority and tactical advantage. They had dismissed the Academy as a soft target, and her as an insignificant human student. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Platform 1 is not clear, Maya reported calmly. Platform 1 is exactly where it needs to be.
Execute pulse sequence now. Maya, no.
Captain Rodriguez's voice broke with emotion. Tell the galaxy that humans don't give up, Maya said. And tell them the quiet girl finally found her voice. Execute pulse on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Academy's main reactor overloaded exactly as Maya had calculated. For a brief moment, the massive station became a miniature star, generating an electromagnetic pulse that raced outward at the speed of light. Every electronic system within 1,000 kilometers shut down instantly. The alien ships went dark simultaneously, their engines cutting out as their power grids collapsed. Emergency lights flickered weakly throughout their hulls as backup systems struggled to compensate for the massive electromagnetic overload. Maya's platform was caught in the center of the pulse. Her communications went dead, life support failed, and the viewport went black as even the emergency lighting systems overloaded. But she was still alive, and more importantly, she was still functional. The human girl had shielded her platform's most critical systems using techniques she had learned from studying ancient Earth naval warfare. In the silence that followed the pulse, Maya activated her platform's manual controls. The aliens probably thought she was dead, which gave her a few precious minutes to implement the final phase of her plan. Working by the light of a handheld emergency beacon, Maya rerouted power from her platform's life support systems to its weapons array. She had maybe 10 minutes of air left, but that was all she needed. The alien ships hung motionless in space, their crews frantically working to restore power to critical systems. They were completely helpless, unable to maneuver or defend themselves. It was exactly the opportunity Maya had been planning for. She activated her platform's targeting system manually, using backup mechanical controls that the electromagnetic pulse couldn't affect. Her weapons were minimal compared to a warship's arsenal, but the aliens had no shields and no way to evade her attack. Maya began systematically targeting the alien ship's engine sections. She wasn't trying to destroy them, just disable them permanently. Each carefully aimed shot took out propulsion systems, stranding the massive warships in space. This is for every student you would have captured, she whispered as she disabled the third ship. This is for every species you thought was weak. By the time the alien crews restored partial power to their ships, 7 of their vessels were completely disabled. The remaining 5 had emergency power only, barely enough for life support and communications. Maya's platform was running on fumes now. Her air was almost gone, and her weapons were overheating from continuous use. But she had accomplished something extraordinary. A single human student in a modified defensive platform had defeated an entire alien fleet. Unknown human, came a transmission from the surviving alien ships. We request immediate ceasefire. Our vessels are disabled and pose no threat. Maya smiled weakly as her oxygen levels dropped into the critical range. This is Maya Chen of the Galactic Academy. Your fleet has been neutralized. Surrender immediately and prepare for boarding by Federation forces. This is impossible, the alien commander transmitted. You are just one small vessel. How did you defeat our entire fleet? Maya's vision was starting to blur from oxygen deprivation, but she managed one final transmission. You made the same mistake everyone else made. You overlooked the quiet girl in the corner. That was your first mistake. Your second mistake was assuming that quiet meant weak. Her platform's emergency beacon activated automatically, as life support failed completely. Through the fading consciousness, Maya heard Captain Rodriguez's voice breaking through the static. Federation rescue ships are on approach. Maya, hold on. You did it. You saved everyone. As darkness closed in around her, Maya Chen realized she had finally answered the question that had puzzled her for 3 years. She wasn't invisible because she was weak or unimportant. She was invisible because she was dangerous. And the galaxy wasn't ready to see what humans were truly capable of. The quiet girl had found her voice, and the sound of it had shattered an entire fleet's confidence in their technological superiority. The battle was won, but Maya's greatest victory was yet to come. Maya woke up in the Academy's medical bay 3 days later. her head pounding and her throat raw from oxygen deprivation. The first thing she saw was Captain Rodriguez sitting beside her bed, looking exhausted but relieved. "Welcome back to the land of the living," Rodriguez said with a tired smile. "You gave us quite a scare." Maya tried to speak but only managed a hoarse whisper. "The fleet? Completely disabled. 7 ships permanently stranded. 5 more running on emergency power only. Federation forces arrived 6 hours after the battle and took the entire alien fleet into custody, without firing a shot." Rodriguez handed Maya a glass of water. "You did something that military strategists will be studying for decades." As Maya sipped the water, memories of the battle came flooding back. The desperate plan, the electromagnetic pulse, the final attack on the disabled ships. It felt like a dream, too incredible to be real. "The other students?" Maya asked. "Safe. Everyone on the academy survived thanks to your tactics." Rodriguez's expression grew serious. "Maya, I need to tell you something. Your battle recording has been classified at the highest levels of Federation command. What you accomplished has implications that go far beyond one defensive action." Maya frowned. "What do you mean?" Before Rodriguez could answer, the medical bay doors opened to admit a parade of visitors that Maya had never expected to see. Director Valthon entered first, followed by Professor Krillax, whose crystalline body was flashing an unusual pattern of respectful blue lights. Behind them came a group of beings Maya didn't recognize, wearing the distinctive uniforms of Federation High Command. "Ms. Chen," Director Valthon said formally, "I want to personally apologize for underestimating your capabilities. Your actions saved not only the Academy, but potentially changed the balance of power in this sector." Admiral Vorthiak, a massive Centaurian with elaborate ceremonial markings, stepped forward. "Student Chen, your tactical innovations have forced us to completely reevaluate human military potential. The techniques you employed are unlike anything in our databases." Maya felt overwhelmed by the attention. These were some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and they were treating her with a respect she had never experienced before. "I just did what seemed logical," she said quietly. "That's exactly the point," said General Takara, a crystalline being similar to Professor Krillax, but with more complex light patterns. "Your approach wasn't logical by galactic standards. It was something entirely new." Professor Krillax stepped forward, his lights now flashing what Maya recognized as an apology pattern. "Ms. Chen, I owe you a personal apology. I dismissed your tactical theories as primitive human thinking. I was wrong. Your unconventional approach was precisely what the situation required." Admiral Vorthak activated a holographic display showing the battle from multiple angles. "Your use of misdirection, psychological warfare, and coordinated chaos represents a completely new school of military thought." The enemy fleet was composed of veteran warriors who had never been defeated using conventional tactics. Maya watched the recording of her battle with fascination. From the outside, she could see how her seemingly random movements had systematically dismantled the alien formation. What had felt like desperate improvisation revealed itself as an intricate tactical masterpiece. "The aliens were members of the hegemony," General Takara explained. "They've been expanding aggressively through the outer rim, defeating every Federation force they've encountered. Their technology is superior to ours, and their tactical doctrine has proven unbeatable. Until now," Admiral Vorthak added. "Your victory was the first time anyone has successfully defeated a hegemony fleet. The implications are enormous." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "They'll be back, won't they? With more ships and better tactics." "Undoubtedly," the Admiral confirmed. "But now we know they can be beaten. Your methods prove that technological superiority isn't everything. Human tactical thinking offers possibilities we never considered." Director Valthon moved closer to Maya's bed. "Ms. Chen, Federation Command is offering you immediate acceptance to the Advanced Strategic Academy on Centauri Prime. You would be studying alongside the greatest military minds in the galaxy." "But I'm just a student," Maya protested. "I'm not even graduated yet." Captain Rodriguez laughed. "Maya, you just defeated an entire enemy fleet using a modified defensive platform and a reactor overload. I think we can safely say you've passed your final exams." Admiral Vorthak's expression grew serious. "Ms. Chen, the Federation is facing its greatest military challenge in centuries. The hegemony has superior technology, superior numbers, and they've been winning every engagement. We need new ideas, new approaches to warfare. We need human thinking." "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Maya said. "We want you to teach us," General Takara replied. "Your unconventional tactics, your ability to see patterns that we miss, your willingness to break established doctrine when it leads to defeat. These are skills the Federation desperately needs. Maya looked around the room at the assembled officers and officials. 3 days ago, she had been invisible, overlooked by everyone around her. Now the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy were asking for her help. There's something else, Captain Rodriguez said quietly. The battle recording has been leaked somehow. It's spreading through unofficial channels across the galaxy. Every species is watching the human student who defeated an unbeatable enemy fleet. Admiral Vorthak nodded grimly. Maya Chen, whether you intended it or not, you've become a symbol. Humans are no longer seen as the primitive newcomers to galactic civilization. Your victory has announced to the galaxy that humanity has military capabilities that were previously unrecognized. Maya felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She had wanted to save her classmates and her school. She hadn't intended to change the balance of power in galactic politics. What happens now? She asked. Now you decide, Director Valthon said. You can return to your studies here at the Academy, though I suspect your classmates will see you quite differently than before. Or you can accept Federation Command's offer and help prepare our forces for the war that's coming. Maya closed her eyes, thinking about 3 years of being ignored and dismissed. She thought about Vextar's mocking comments, about professors who considered her ideas too simplistic, about classmates who saw her as weak and boring. Then she thought about the alien fleet hanging disabled in space, about the Academy students sleeping safely in their dormitories, about the message her victory had sent to the galaxy. When she opened her eyes, Maya Chen was no longer the quiet girl everyone overlooked. She was something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. She was a human military strategist, and she was ready to show the universe what that meant. Admiral, she said, her voice steady and clear. When do we start? 6 months later, Maya stood before a massive, holographic display in the Federation's strategic command center on Centauri Prime. The war room buzzed with activity as representatives from dozens of species worked together to analyze the latest intelligence reports from the front lines. The hegemony had responded to their fleet's defeat at the Academy exactly as Maya had predicted. They had returned with larger forces, better coordination, and new tactics designed to counter conventional Federation responses. What they hadn't expected was that the Federation was no longer using conventional responses. Enemy fleet composition confirmed, reported Commander Zixtal, a Chitauri intelligence officer whose compound eyes could process multiple data streams simultaneously. 47 vessels approaching the Kepler system. They're using the same formation that defeated our forces at Rigel. Maya studied the tactical display with the same intense focus she had once brought to her solitary studies in the Academy library. But now she wasn't alone. Around her stood a carefully selected team of officers from various species, all trained in the new tactical doctrines that had emerged from her victory. They're expecting us to meet them with a conventional fleet engagement, Maya said. Standard Federation doctrine would call for defensive formations with overlapping fields of fire. Admiral Vorthak nodded. Our simulations show that approach would result in 60% casualties even if we achieved victory. Then we won't give them a conventional fleet engagement, Maya replied. She manipulated the holographic display to show the asteroid belt that surrounded the Kepler system. We'll give them something they've never seen before. Captain Rodriguez, now serving as Maya's second-in-command, smiled. I recognize that look. You have a plan that's going to violate several regulations, don't you? Maya had changed dramatically over the past 6 months. No longer the quiet, overlooked student, she had grown into her role as the Federation's youngest strategic advisor. But she had retained the unconventional thinking that made her dangerous to enemies who expected predictable responses. The hegemony expects us to defend the inhabited planets directly, Maya explained. Instead, we're going to use the asteroid field as a 3-dimensional battlefield. Small mobile units with concentrated firepower, operating independently but coordinated through shared tactical objectives. General Takara's crystalline body flashed skeptical orange. You're suggesting we abandon defensive formations entirely? That contradicts every principle of space combat. Every galactic principle, Maya corrected. Human naval warfare developed different principles out of necessity. When you're technologically inferior, you can't fight fair and expect to win. She highlighted specific asteroids on the display. We hide our forces throughout the belt. When the hegemony fleet enters the system, they'll see what appears to be a small, unprepared defense force. They'll move to engage, and that's when we spring the trap. Admiral Vorthak studied the plan with growing interest. How many ships would we need to make this work? 12, Maya said simply. The war room fell silent. The hegemony was bringing 47 vessels, including several massive dreadnoughts that outgunned anything in the Federation fleet. 12 ships against 47? Commander Zixtal's voice carried disbelief. Maya, even with unconventional tactics, the numbers are impossible. The numbers are exactly right, Maya replied. Too many ships and we lose mobility. Too few and we can't create enough simultaneous threats to overwhelm their response capabilities. Captain Rodriguez had learned to trust Maya's mathematical approach to warfare. What do you need from us? Maya activated a new section of the display showing detailed ship modifications. Each vessel needs to be stripped down for maximum speed and maneuverability. We remove heavy armor and replace it with enhanced engines and long-range weapon systems. That's suicide, General Takara protested. Those ships won't survive a direct engagement. They're not meant to survive direct engagement, Maya explained. They're meant to avoid it entirely. Hit and run, strike and fade, always moving. Never where the enemy expects them to be. Over the following weeks, Maya's plan took shape with meticulous precision. 12 Federation ships were converted to her specifications, their crews trained in tactics that seemed insane by galactic standards. The selected captains were all volunteers who understood they were participating in an experiment that would either revolutionize space warfare or get them all killed. The day of the battle arrived with typical bureaucratic drama. Half of Federation High Command wanted to cancel the operation and resort to conventional defensive tactics. The other half wanted to trust the human girl who had already accomplished the impossible once. Maya stood in the command center of the Federation flagship, watching as the hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. 47 massive warships arranged in perfect battle formation, confident in their technological superiority and proven tactics. Enemy fleet is advancing toward our position, reported the sensor officer. They're maintaining standard approach formation. Maya nodded. Signal all units. Implement Operation Phantom Storm. What followed became known as the Battle of Kepler's Belt, an engagement that military historians would study for generations. Maya's 12 ships vanished into the asteroid field like ghosts, appearing and disappearing seemingly at random, while inflicting precise damage on the advancing hegemony fleet. The enemy commanders, expecting a conventional battle, found themselves fighting shadows. Every time they moved to engage what appeared to be the main Federation force, their targets would fade away, only to reappear somewhere else entirely. This is impossible, transmitted the hegemony fleet commander. How can 12 ships be everywhere at once? Maya smiled as she coordinated the complex dance of her scattered forces. Because we're not fighting where you're looking, she said, though the alien commander couldn't hear her. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 31 hegemony ships had been disabled or destroyed, while the remaining 16 fled in disorder. The Federation lost 2 ships and suffered minor damage to 3 others. The victory sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The hegemony, undefeated for decades, had been shattered by a force 1/4 their size using tactics that violated every principle of established warfare. Maya, Admiral Vorthak said after the battle reports were filed, I think it's time we stopped calling these unconventional tactics. You've created an entirely new form of warfare. Maya looked out at the stars through the command center's viewport. Somewhere out there, the surviving hegemony ships were reporting back to their superiors about the impossible defeat they had suffered. Other species were analyzing the battle recordings, trying to understand how humans had accomplished the unthinkable. Admiral, Maya said quietly, I think the galaxy is about to discover that humans have been preparing for this war a lot longer than anyone realized. The quiet girl everyone had overlooked had become the voice of a new kind of warfare. But more than that, she had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their refusal to accept that any fight was hopeless, and their willingness to rewrite the rules when the existing rules led to defeat. Maya Chen had spent 3 years being invisible. Now the entire galaxy was watching to see what the humans would do next.